Welcome back to Strictly Money. Small businesses are often the first to feel the brunt of inflation and economic worries. After all, they don't have the pricing power and flexibility to cut operating costs the way that large corporations do. So it shouldn't come as a surprise that an overwhelming majority of small businesses are calling on the government to do more to support them. Jeff Brown is head of commercial solutions at Equifax Canada, and he joins me now. Hi, Jeff. Great to have you on.
Thanks for having me.
You know, this is a personal finance show, as you know, but I think this is a very important topic for us to discuss because small businesses are really, the backbone of our economy. And when we have failures, it has huge ramifications on their savings and retirement and often employment as well. I wanted to ask you, what are you hearing from businesses? What are their biggest worries right now?
Yeah. So, yes, failures and hardships of business owners not only affect the business owners themselves, but those hardships are then passed over to the end consumer as well. So, Equifax Canada ran a survey this past month for about 300 business owners across the country, and 87% said they've been forced to increase prices over the past few months. So, things like this shouldn't really be a surprise because there's a number of factors that have been impacting business owners. So, things like the cost of goods increasing with inflation, cost of capital increasing with increased interest rates, just like the Bank of Canada's announcement today, supply chain issues, demand for increased wages. Really, it's a huge concern for small businesses, and it does impact us as consumers. So it's really concerning because of those surveyed as well. The concern is that 87% of those same businesses have stated that they've had to raise their prices in a move that's going to substantially hurt their business and us as consumers.
Yeah, and raising prices, right? As I mentioned, they don't actually have nearly the same ability to trim costs the way, suppose, big corporations would. Do you get a sense of that?
Absolutely. For small businesses, cash flow is really their main concern right now as well, because it's essentially the lifeblood of how they operate. So kind of following that with the survey, about 60% of businesses said that cash flow is their largest challenge. Outside of rent, the top three expenses they face are products and services, fuel, wages. The rule of thumb with small businesses is you have to be spending money to make money. So in tough times, small businesses, just like us as consumers, really rely on credit. So both from financial institutions and their suppliers. So, during the pandemic, for example, there's 900,000 small businesses that received about $49 billion worth of interest-free government-backed loans. So similar to us as consumers, we're becoming more and more of a nation of debt holders, as we're seeing this now fully transition into small businesses as well.
Yeah, we have a board that came up and it shows the debt levels, right? The average balance, $37,000. Was that mostly due, Jeff, because of the pandemic? And have they been able to make up for it as the economy has opened up?
Unfortunately, no. We're seeing a lot of signs that there were positivity coming out of part of the pandemic here, but small businesses just don't have the same relative flexibility as large corporations. So, and how they operate, they typically run on like razor thin margins. So, especially during the first few years of operating, they have a number of limited staff, limited suppliers they operate with, and have a very fragile supply chain. So, this lack of stability really means that any bumps in the road, like inflation, interest rate, job vacancies, really hit them dramatically harder. So larger corporations, while not immune from these types of challenges, have redundancies in place. They have a multitude of suppliers, they have preferential terms, and really the financial institutions see them as a safer bet.
Yeah. Jeff, if I'm correct, the pandemic loans, they should be due soon, right? And does that not raise concerns that they won't be able to pay them back if they don't have the cash?
Absolutely. We just saw like debts and delinquencies really kind of charge up here over the past few months. And just with these loans that the federal government offered, they're just in fact that they're loans. They're not a bailout. It's basically a stopgap to help to get them through. So there are a number of concerns. So one of the things that not many Canadians know about is just like us as consumers, small businesses have a credit score and a credit report. And, it's something that you reference when you buy a car, a house, or apply for a credit card. Small businesses face that same thing. So during the pandemic, we've been actively monitoring the negative credit life cycle. So delinquencies, collections, illegal activity, and bankruptcies. And really what happened is there was a bit of a logjam. So delinquencies were basically deferred out by suppliers and lenders. Collection companies stopped doing outbound calls, and courts were essentially closed. So basically all this negative things that could happen didn't happen. And as we open up from the pandemic, that logjam has broken free. And so we're starting to see delinquency rates climb. So more legal action really come through there. So it's a sign to us that not only does that debt level really carrying through, but it's going to get a bit worse before it gets better.
Okay. We have a lot more to unpack here. We'll be back in 2. Welcome back. So, Jeff, we know that they want support, some type of support from the government. What do you think would help?
Yeah, so as I mentioned earlier, that $49 or $49 billion worth of government-backed loans were just that. They were loans. They have to be paid back at some point, and interest is going to start to accumulate here in the coming year. So with businesses taking on record debt during the pandemic, and these loans are kind of being positioned as a lifeline, not a bailout, many small businesses are looking for at least some forgiveness just to ease those cash flows concerns. So with the cost of capital really increasing, getting more expensive, it's a justifiable concern for small businesses, especially as we feel like we're heading towards a bit of a recession here.
Do you think that financial institutions also play a role in this?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, they're businesses as well. I mean, they want to be able to play into safe bets as well. And again, with the cost of capital just rising, they have to make sure that any loans that they issue out, any cards that are being issued, are really being done to safe situations too. So you'll see them kind of temper expectations with the amount of working capital loans that are out there, maybe reducing amounts or increasing the associated rates. So it's going to be kind of trying times for small businesses here. Just like we mentioned off the top, any really impact to small businesses is going to then impact us as consumer with increase in prices.
Yeah. There's a lot of debate, Jeff, right now about EI and CPP premiums going up, right? Whether it's a tax or not. Are you hearing anything from the businesses right now? Because, certainly that has an impact on their cash flow.
I mean, absolutely. Not to get into that specifically, but yeah, I mean, it is a bit of a headwind for them as well. I mean, we're seeing it in different signs within the economy as well. So, the pressures that small business face is really evident from the numbers of net new businesses that we're seeing open up into the economy. So, new businesses openings have dropped about 50% between April and June of this year compared to last year, which is really significant. Like typically the springtime is kind of historically the most active time period for new business openings, where we typically see about 90 to 100,000 small businesses open up. So with that 50% drop, it's really a big challenge. I mean, it's not really going to see the impact now, but down the road as well. I mean, there's going to be less businesses out there to be able to put goods out there, which is also going to impact the prices for products as well. So again, it's going to have a long-term effect, not only to other small businesses, but major suppliers who invoice those tens, if not hundreds of thousands of small businesses. So we're going to see a lagging impact here over the next few months.
I'm certainly seeing a lot of businesses even having to shut down temporarily because they're not finding the workers.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, as we talk about this too, you really have to think about, what can we do to help? And as part of that, it's really just understanding your financial situation, just like you talked about on your show and from a consumer perspective.
Yeah.
So really what we've been surveying out as well is like only 57% of business owners really understand that they have a credit score, and only 32% of those know even how to obtain it. So the reality is that small businesses really need to be mindful on taking on new debts. They need to ensure that they have a clear picture of their current financial situation, have a plan forward, and before making any commitments that could really impact them in the long run.
Yeah, so let's talk about that, because you said in the report that a better understanding of credit would help them and understanding, their credit score. So walk us through some of the things that they should be looking for.
Well, absolutely. I mean, if we kind of reverse back to the start of the pandemic, I mean, us as consumers, you're able to ask for deferral on your mortgage, deferral on your car loan. I think for small businesses, as we enter into a potential recession here as well, you almost have to adopt that same mindset. Is be very wary of your core debts that you have to take on, your obligations, and really start talking to your suppliers. Ask for deferrals, talk about the rates that you receive, open up your financial books a little bit to let them know exactly where you stand. What we found during the pandemic is a lot of small businesses didn't know that was even an option to ask for things like deferrals. If you're going through a hardship here over the next month or two, maybe you are having a tough time finding net new workers or you have to increase your wages, it might be a temporary stopgap where you have to ask for other measures by, again, working capital loans or asking for, payment deferrals to your large suppliers just to be able to open those up a little bit. So adopting some of that kind of early pandemic mindset is really going to help a lot of small businesses kind of ride into what looks like us entering into a recession.
Okay, that's very good advice. So pull up that business credit report and run through that. Thanks so much for coming on today, Jeff. We really appreciate your insights.
Thank you for having me.
Jeff Brown of Equifax Canada. Well, that wraps up this edition of Strictly Money. Are you planning on trimming your holiday spending? And if so, what's your strategy to stretch your budget? Let us know. Meantime, thanks for watching. We'll see you again next week.